Hello, hello. Welcome on in. Come on in the room on this evening. I know some of you were looking for me at 3 o'clock or 3:30, but remember, it's Pop-Up Sundays with Crystal. And so I am popping up on you guys late this evening. And I pray that you let me know if you were able to come in and listen to the replay, or if you were able to come in and listen to the live. Please give me some feedback. I first want to say that I do not own the copyrights to the music playing in the background. And that the second thing I would like to say is that all three of my books are still available for ordering. So the one journal is an actual prayer journal for widows. It's called God's Love for the Grieving Widow. Again, it is a prayer journal, and this one is for widows. My second book is There is Beauty in My Brokenness. It's the story of my late husband's death when we met, and till death did us part. And so it's a beautiful read. And again, it is called There is Beauty in My Brokenness. And my third book, which I just ordered more copies, but I hadn't had a chance to get them yet, was No Man Plans to Fail, but Many Men Fail to Plan. Divine Direction and Connections, and they can be ordered through me or either through Amazon. And so I wanted to get that out the way. If you know someone that it will be a blessing to, please purchase it for them. Get it for Christmas for them. If you know a widow that may be struggling, surely bless her with a 31-day prayer journal, letting her know how important she is to God, and that He holds a special place in His life and His heart for our lives. And so I wanted to get on and say that I am late this evening. I had a Christmas gathering that I was at, but I wanted to still come on today, although I was thinking about maybe breaking from the Sundays that we have up until after Christmas, because I kind of feel like this was a dampering thing to kind of talk about, right? But as I spoke to a couple of different people, they let me know, no, Crystal, you need to show up. You still need to come on. And so I had been saying that I need to show up. It doesn't matter what time I come on, but I still need to show up for you guys, right? And so I decided to come on and show up for you guys. And so for some of you that don't know the history, I lost my husband 4.5 years ago to a sudden death, and I found myself in probate. And so since I have been going through the things that I have went through and am still experiencing, I have become an advocate for speaking and giving people information on getting their affairs in order, how important it is for you to get your affairs in order, because we just never know what can happen in a matter of time. I was listening to my bishop talk about a pastor whose son had an accident, and how his story was just absolutely amazing. It was a blessing. Could have went a different way, but thank God for His mercy and His grace. Thank God for the prayers of the saints. Thank God for, healing his body and continuing to heal his body. But when I hear stories like that, it just lets me know, and it makes me more aware of how we never know how we can either pass from this life to the next life, or either until we, if we can become incapacitated in a matter of a moment, not thinking that it could happen to you, that um, you know, anything, a heart attack, a stroke, or whatever. We just never know um, if we possibly can end up incapacitated. And so, what happened with the young man as he was a skateboarder, and there were some motorcycles that were coming in, and hey. And so what happened is, I think the skateboarder, the young gentleman, he ran into the motorcycler, ran into him, and so it had punctured. He was bleeding internally, and it was not looking good at all. They weren't expecting him to make it until the next morning, even. But thank God again for God's mercy and grace and for his healing power. He was able to come home, not walking on a walker or anything. They were able to save the kidney. And so that is a praise report. And I thank God for it. At the same time, because we never know when we might find ourselves in that position, our children, our loved ones. There are many people that have lost their loved ones unexpectedly, like I did. And so we tend to continue to procrastinate about things instead of getting things in place. So once you hear and you get the information, there's one thing he says, my people perish because of the lack of knowledge. But once you start getting the knowledge, you start getting the information, then you need to start moving in that direction instead of procrastinating and not getting it done. And get it. I get it. I understand. That's what we did. We simply procrastinated. We simply listened to other people tell us different things instead of finding the information out for ourselves. And I lost my husband unexpectedly. And the results of that is that I am still battling so many different things concerning finances and things that my husband had that I inherited, that it just is not easy. It's a good thing that he had those things. At the same time, if you have investments, if you have your 401k, if you have your retirement, please share with your spouses. Please share with your loved ones who you have decided to leave as beneficiaries. First of all, make sure that you have beneficiaries on all those things. All things that are financial need to have beneficiaries on them. And so, listen, we're kind of in that. I've made it to that 60s group. And so I realized that we didn't ever think about it. We never thought to go back and say, hey, do I have that beneficiary on that bank account? Because we had our bank accounts over 20, 30 years. And so me and my husband was married for 34 years. And this February coming up, it will be 39 years that we would have been married. And so I am still counting. And so I'm just, so blessed to have what I've had. And so I just, I'm thankful and I'm grateful. So as my bishop was speaking today, I like to kind of come back and reflect. And as he was giving his testimony today, it made me think about my testimonies of God's goodness, God's mercy and grace on my life. And so where I've said this before, some of you may have heard me say it, some of you may not have. This may be the first time. But I can truly say that many times when I said that God was the head of my household, it was lip service. And I didn't realize that I had him beneath, under my husband, because when I lost my husband, I felt like I lost that protector. I lost that provider. I lost that all that he was to me, which was above what God was to me at the time that I lost him. And so when I lost my husband, that's why my faith was so shaken. And so, as I would say that God is sovereign and that he was all of those things to me until you are actually faced with that challenge. And as my bishop was speaking today and kind of saying, like, he will allow us to go through these different things to let us know who he really is, what he really is in our lives. And so I realize now that I had my husband in the place where God should have been in my life. And so, that's all I can say is that because when the two become one, there's such a unity there that it just kind of automatically, you just grow that love for one another, right? So you don't think about it because you're going through your daily routines. And so you just kind of never think about that you really held that person like a God in your life until that person is gone. So I realize that now that he's no longer here, that he can't be that protector. He can't be that provider, although he is still in some shape, form, or fashion providing for me. But at the same time, God is just constantly putting people in my life. And so as I was listening to my bishop speak today and give his testimony, I kind of wonder, why do we worry so much? I could be a good worrier. I can have a plaque, a gold medallion for worry, right? And so I am learning, I'm growing in the things of God, and I want to trust God. I want to be in faith. But sometimes it's wavering. It's scary to do this thing called life without your spouse when you've had someone in your corner and that who were providing for you and who you felt like was the protector. And so now it's kind of like, I used to be out and, it didn't matter. I would be going to LA, coming back in. It'd be, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And it was no big deal to me. And now I'm more cautious of being out late at night by myself or being out at night by myself, period. I'm more cautious of it without my husband being here. Can I pray and ask God to cover me? Absolutely. And he does. But I am more aware and I use wisdom on when I'm out late, when I'm out doing things like I used to. And so, again, as he was giving his testimony, it made me reflect on mine. And it made me reflect on the goodness of God in my life. And I know how hard it is because my children, they are, renting and their rent is high and things are expensive and they need cars and different things like that. And so I just started reflecting on the goodness of God, how it's been 4.5 years, and with me being a stay-at-home wife, our children are adults now, and so to inherit all of this responsibility, it can be rough, it can be tough. And so I said that I would come on today and be transparent with you guys because I just listened to how my bishop was so transparent with us today. And I was thinking about the goodness of God and how I can tend to worry. And so I am taking a class at my church, And I tend, I just, I got behind on my payments, right? But I have stepped out on faith to say, God, I know you have me. And so when my mortgage is due tomorrow. And so when I checked the bank, I didn't have enough in my account for my mortgage. And someone had wrote me a check for order for Christmas. And so I was like, in a panic for a minute. And I just thought to myself, look at God, like each month over the last 4.5 years, God has been providing for me. And so he has been placing people in my life, and that just has been such a true blessing. But I'm just trying to learn to not panic as much as I used to, because I guess after you've gone through it a little bit, you start realizing that God got me. And so I have to say that I have to rely on God. I have to believe his promises for me. And I have to know that he is my provider. And so it was just so difficult to, hold on. So somebody was calling me. They're not used to me being on the live this late. To say that God is my provider. No matter what, no matter about the government, who I could call, I have a couple of people that I could call and say, hey, I'm short. Or, but when he taught that today, it just showed me, I mean, when I think about my kids in college, when I think about my kids finishing college and the things that happen, it's a testimony in itself. When I think about us having to move, we had a notice that we had to move in October, and we actually purchased a house and got our keys in January. And so that was 3 months later. And I watched God do that for us. And then sometimes, the enemy will play tricks with your mind about, well, you were only in the house for 2.5 years before you lost your husband. And so, but I'm still so grateful and thankful, because when I think back over my life and I see how God brought me from uh, Section 8, I see how God had brought me from having to be on welfare at one time. And I'm so grateful and thankful today. It's nothing wrong with those things, but I see where God has brought me from. And trust me, you guys, I'll never forget where he brought me from. Because just as quick as he brought me from there, as quick as your whole life can change. Some widows have lost everything. Some widows have lost their homes, their cars, their apartments, had notices on the door when they came home from the service that they had to move. And so I'm so thankful and grateful today. But even though those things happen to some of the people that I know, God is still good. He still had a ram in the bush. He still is blessing. And I remember a couple of years ago when my bishop said that just because things seem like it could be something that could be right, because we don't know what God has in plan for us a little later down the line. We were devastated when we had to move. I had 2 cousins that had to move at the same time. Their landlords had passed away. And so their lives was all shook up. They had been living in their places for, 10, 20, 30 years. And, we were all devastated. But you know what? We all purchased a home. And so when I seen how God, when you know that it's God and it's only God, because man could not do with it what you've been able to accomplish and do, then you can give him all the praise, the glory, and the honor. And so I honor God on today. I'm so thankful that my bishop brought it back to my attention. I do think back sometime over my life. I'll just think, and I'm just so grateful and I'm so thankful. Is it scary? Absolutely, it is. Because can you imagine not having your spouse and your spouse is your breadwinner? And so, in saying that, my for those of you that may not know, that when you lose your spouse, um, you cannot get your spouse's benefits, meaning their finances, until after you turn 60 years old. Now, if your spouse was disabled, you may be able to get it, I believe, if you're 50. You may be able to get it if they were disabled. And then, if you're disabled and you're 50, you can apply for the benefits, right? For disability. And so I just been, I don't know. I've been real complex about younger widows, and the assumption that you would automatically get your husband's money or your wife's money, because sometimes the wife is the one that is the breadwinner, right? It's not always the men. And so if you're not 60 years old, you cannot get your spouse's benefits. And so I was telling some ladies at the bank that, and they were like, what? I never heard of that. You can get their insurance if you have insurance, but you can't get the benefits. So how are you going to get the benefits if you are not 60 years old, right? There may be some other stipulations, but I know California, we had to be 60 years old, not unless we were getting disability. And I believe the disability, widows with disability, you can get at 50, you can apply at 50, 55, something like that. But just to let you know that there's a waiting period there. So I think it's so important that we go ahead and make sure that we get our affairs in order and in place so that we will be prepared if the vicissitudes of life happen to us, right? And so as long as we're living, we're going to experience death. And that is one thing that I have an issue with, but you know what? It's just my issue. It's my lot. I have no control over death. I have no control over what happens to what happens to us, what we might face someday. But I can tell you this: you can prepare to have your affairs in order so that you will be able to go ahead and take care of it. So look into getting some mortgage protection. Look into getting your revocable living trust. Now, I know that they have a lot of different type of trusts, but what I am talking about today is the revocable living trust. That if you own property, it's essential that you have your revocable living trust so that you can secure your family and protect your family from going through probate. And so that's the main thing that you want to do. You want to protect yourself because, listen, all I think about is that can of worms that you pop open and they just come flying out when I think about probate. And so I was telling a friend, I said, you know, if you hadn't did this affidavit for small collections, I said you would have had to go through probate because that's what the bank was telling her. And you would have had to get in contact with anybody that was kin to him to, you know, possibly have to share the money with the ones that you don't probably want to share no money with, right? You feel like you work so hard for what you have, what you guys have, but the thing is, the law is that a portion of that 50% of that spouse that passed away without the trust and you find yourself in probate will have to be split amongst the people that show up. You never know if it's debtors. You never know if it's um, other children that you didn't know about. Maybe an ex-spouse that you you didn't know about, or you thought that was you know, no longer on anything. That's another thing, that if you get a divorce, if you found yourself, you've had a divorce and you probably haven't thought about it, but you still have that person as your beneficiary on your things, they're going to give that person that you have down as the beneficiary the money. And so you find yourself where there's people that have been divorced, nasty divorce, they never took them off, and they may have remarried or they may have had children. You disinherit your own children because you didn't go back and change those things. So you have to go back and change it. Not only that, go back and make sure, because I know most of us have had bank accounts for years, and we assume that there were beneficiaries on there. And so to be sure, go back and check and make sure that you have beneficiaries on all financials and all things that are financial. Go for now and write these things down. Have the hard conversation with your loved ones about what their wishes are, what your wishes are. You know, how do you want things to go? Because if you have a will and you have a will only, the will go to probate. And so you don't want, that's what you want to avoid at all costs. You want to avoid probate. Um, the other thing I had been wanted to talk to you guys about is I've talked to several women that have found themselves like myself where there was no beneficiary. And so some people have had parents that passed away, no beneficiary. And so as I was speaking to a young lady this past week, she was saying that, hey, there was no beneficiary on the account, on my husband's account, and it'll cost me more money to go through probate than it would be that's in the account. And so I told her, listen, she lives in California. I said, you can fill out this form. I said, I have extra copies. So you can fill out this form. It's an affidavit for collections of personal property under the California Probate Code, Section 13100. And with that, with this paper, what you can actually do, anything under 166,000, and there's no probate open, you can actually take this form in and present the death certificate and your ID, and they're supposed to release the funds to you. So what the bank is going to tell you is that you have to go to probate. But again, like I said earlier, if you open up that probate, you're opening up your whole life to everybody. There are people that are they're searching. Their job is to search to see who's in probate, what's going on. So when you open up that probate, just to fill out the paperwork is about $500. And then you have to wait 3 months to make sure that all of the people that have the opportunity to see that there's a probate open, that they can come after your estate for, then you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. Listen, it doesn't happen. So again, protect yourself, protect your family, keep the wealth within the family, keep the legacy within the family instead of allowing the government or to come in to be able to take a portion of your house by fighting even your own children. Secure it for your children. That's what I did. I was determined because I knew that my children would not be able to afford it. So I was like, you know what? Not long will they be able to afford it. They're not going to know what to do. So what they're going to do is probably more than likely walk away like so many of us have done. We walked away from the bank accounts. We walked away from the investment accounts. We walked away from the 401ks because we did not know. So I was speaking to another young lady, and she was telling me she used to work at a bank, and that a young lady had came in. This is a different state, and she was the beneficiary on the CD account. But that person had a loan with the bank. And so the bank told her, you have to pay us our money back in order for you to get the money from the CD account. Now, that wasn't her debt. She was the person that inherited because she was left as the beneficiary. So another checker had let her know the correct information was that that loan did not belong to you. So you do not have to pay it. So once she came in with the correct paperwork and stuff, they had to give her that money back. But just see how, if we don't know, then how we can walk away or get ourselves into where they are ripping you off because you don't know. And so that's why it's so important for you to educate yourself, to find out, hey, what is this I need? What do I need to do so that my loved ones won't be left in grief and hurt and still fighting for what's yours? You've worked so hard for it. So since you worked so hard for it, work hard to keep it in the family. Don't disinherit your children. Don't disinherit your wife or your husband from the home that you guys built together. And so make sure that and if you know someone, because I believe you can fill this paper out too if you may have lost a mom. I know people that have walked away because their parent may have passed away and they weren't on the bank account. And so this form, you actually can fill it out as well. It can't be a house, can't be a boat, can't be a car. And so and knowing that too, with the cars, it is very important that we go ahead and put beneficiaries down for our cars because we just never know. And it's not as easy. Listen, Congress has set this thing up and it's called probate. And so if it's not in black and white, it never existed. And so you want to make sure that you have it in black and white so that way you can present the correct paperwork so that things can go smoothly. Because I'm going to tell you, as a living witness, this is hell to be going through in the midst of you losing your loved one. And even though it's not a bad thing that another investment came in and that, but it's hurtful to not know what to do. So for those of you that have investments, for those of you that are pay the bills and that other spouse don't know how to do anything, don't leave your spouses where they don't know how to do anything. Have the conversation, write some things down, let them know. And again, for those of you that may pay your bills online and you don't have the information, if you were to become incapacitated today, for your loved one to carry on with your bills, to carry on with, you know, the regular things that need to be carried on. Listen, I've been on Sunday after Sunday. And so please listen, just get a composition book and write these things down. You will be amazed at how many people been married for 30 something years and don't know their spouse's social security numbers or information. I was speaking to someone else and they were letting me know that her husband had where on the phone where it was the thumbprint. And so with the thumbprint, um, she was able to get in and change it. But guess what? She knew the password to the phone. So in order for her to go in and change the password so that she can put her thumbprint in, I was like, that was brilliant of you to be able to come up with that. But her and her husband did share a lot of their information because she was taking care of a lot of his business for him. So that's how she knew a lot of things, passcodes and different things like that. She knew it because she had been, you know, helping take care of him. And so I was like, wow, okay. So I believe one of my husband's phones had the thumbprint as well, but, and I don't know, excuse me, the password to it, but that's something to think about. If you have the passcode or your face or something, it's important that you have a second person or that you change it to where if something happens to you and your loved one needs to get in your phone for information that's concerning business, you want to make sure that you know, let them know that or allow them to have their thumbprint as well to the phone. And so just write down social security numbers, all bank account numbers, and ATM passwords to all financial things. And I can't say this enough. If you do investments, teach your loved one how to invest. Teach your loved one what to do, because I know it was every bit of my husband's intentions to prepare for us for later, for retirement. And he did not have beneficiaries on accounts. And so that's why I've had to do numerous of these forms to fill out. And I know it was nothing intentional or nothing that was hidden from me. We just simply didn't talk about it. And so um, as I start, you know, as I'm learning on this journey that I'm on, then I'm like, wow, okay, that was good on his behalf. That was good, you know. But then he also had insurance, separate insurance that I didn't know about, that we never discussed. And so I know, and I've heard that same thing has happened to a couple of other widows that I have talked to. I have lost insurance because we didn't have the conversation. And so have the hard conversation. Let your loved ones, let someone know that if there's something different, so that they won't lose what you intended to be for them. And so I am just, you know, I don't know. I had got on a podcast last week, or like what is it, a podcast? It was like you know, a teaching on what to do with irrevocable trust. And as I was listening to the young lady giving the class, a couple of things I didn't totally agree with, but I noticed that there were a lot of seniors African American seniors on that line that was looking to get things, looking to get a trust done. And so at the end of the presentation, she let them know, okay, well, she let all of us know, okay, you can click here, click there, and then you can get the class that's gonna be for the next 4 days. Well, now because I have had this experience, and I was asking her, okay, so after you pay this, then when you get ready to get the trust, how much is the trust going to be? Because a lot of the people on there were saying after they made the payment, the first payment, they were asking, well, now, is it going to be affordable for me to get this trust? Now, I know that trust can cost a pretty penny. And so it's almost like they were being wooed into, they didn't know exactly what they had paid for. And so I asked the instructor, well, hey, how much is it going to be at the end? How much is it for the irrevocable trust? And she told me, well, you can't, we don't tell you how much it is until after you take this class, the 4 classes. And so I knew that they're going to stream those people in who ended up paying a lot of money. And a lot of them were seniors, like I said. And so they barely knew how to work the Zoom that we were on. And so I know that they're not going to be able to do that trust themselves. Whatever package that they give them, they're not going to be able to do it. And so my heart goes out. I was looking for one of the young ladies on there that was given so much of her information. And it was almost like, they were saying, well, you don't have to use your loved one to be your executor. We have people that can do it. Hey, sis, we have people that can do it, that can, be your executor. And so as I thought about that, and I thought about, listen, we are going to be, those people are going to possibly be, they could possibly be ripped off. So if you use somebody outside your family to take care of, say, that's your executor. Your person that's your executor is the person that's over all of your stuff, right? And so they can say, hey, you know what? She left this house to me. Because you have to change your deed and put your house into the trust. So everything that's of value to you will go inside the trust. So can you imagine having a stranger, because she asked her, she said, well, what are you? Are you a lawyer or a paralegal? And she said, no, I'm a retired teacher. And so I thought, wow, I know that I'm not one. I do that disclosure that I'm not a paralegal, I'm not a lawyer. But listen, I know and I have learned that if you allow that person to be over your stuff, even if it's a lawyer, that they can say, hey, I'm the executor. And they can disinherit your children, and they can take your house away from you. So you want to make sure that you have a lawyer, especially when it comes down to these things, these Zooms, these different things that they have on social media for you to come to and talk to. So as I was listening to her talk, I was like, wow, I don't believe that's true. And it's because now it sounds good to a person that have not been through what I've just experienced. It sounds really good, like, yeah, I'm securing my house, I'm this, that, and that. So I just was like, you know what? The irrevocable trust would not be good for me, because I want to be in control of my trust until I die. And so I have placed the people in place to take care of that, so that they will be able to do, what my wishes are. And so I also was just like so burdened about that. I was talking to a couple of my friends about it, and I was like, wow, uh, you know, you just, I'm so burdened about that, you guys, because I know at the end of the day, when they keep having them pay for thing after thing, especially because these were senior people, our people on there that was seeking to get this information. But I know that they're just going to keep streaming them along the way. And at the end of the day, they're going to tell them that I was able to get in contact with one of the young ladies, and she did tell me that in order to keep the maintenance up was going to be about $6,000. So now you guys know y'all don't want to pay the $2,000. So how are you going to afford to keep up them to keep up the maintenance for you? And you're a retired teacher. So I just thought to myself, I said, well, you know what? I guess anybody can get on here and say whatever or do whatever she has the experience because she lost a parent. But I'm like, I had the experience because I lost a spouse. And so I did my trust and I did my probate because I had no money. Remember, I said I was a stay-at-home wife. And so anything that cost money that could have been a mortgage payment for me, then I was like, I don't have no money. The judge told me, I think you should seek legal counsel. And I'm thinking, I can't seek legal nothing. I am doing this with me, the Father, and the Holy Ghost, the Lord Jesus, and I am trusting that He is going to get me through this. And I was not per se afraid of the judge, but I was afraid of the mortgage company because I knew that they could have pulled the loan from me because we had only been in our house for 2.5 years. And so when God made that happen the way it did, and I was terrified, you guys get my book and read it, you will hear my whole story of what I went through when I started probate and when I completed my trust. And so for those of you that keep procrastinating about money, this would be actually a great Christmas gift to get your affairs in order, to get your trust done, instead of spending money doing other things, getting toys and getting things that these kids ain't gonna even have next month. So it is important that you take the time, have it be a gift to someone. Even if you open up your adult children some life insurance, have that be a gift. Listen, we have given them more than they could ever need and want it. And so what's important is that we take the time to get our affairs in order. We know that as mothers, that if something was to happen to our adult children, it's going to pretty much fall on us to lay that child to rest. So I'm always constantly telling my kids, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to be paying. You know, this is what you need to take the responsibility for because I have did it long enough. And now that you guys are adults and you have children, now it's time to release you to do it. I can't afford to do it. You know, I really can't. But that just like when we sometimes take the babies and we open them an account up, a bank account, we're going to open you a bank account so we can save for your college. But we don't even have no life insurance for these babies. Listen, babies need life insurance as well. I would say from 1 day old, a baby needs life insurance because guess what? I have several nieces that had lost their children and they had to pay for a service. And so because they have an expense as well, it's important that you do it. And then listen, by the time they get 21 or whatever, they'll have them a little dividends and they'll have some money that they can get when they get older. That's like a little savings account for them and they will be so happy if you do that for them. You know, get them along the way, get them started. We do so much for our kids as long as we can do it. And so that would be a beautiful Christmas gift to start them out. Instead of doing CD accounts or whatever, and you know they don't have no life insurance, get them some life insurance. Get your grandbabies some Gerber life insurance. Start them out somewhere. And so I don't know how I got there, but apparently the Holy Spirit wanted you guys to know that because I wasn't even thinking about that. But get you some life insurance for yourself. Get you some life insurance that would cover your mortgage if you have a mortgage. If you still have a mortgage, get you some life insurance or get you some mortgage protection because I sit here and think all the time that I sure wish we would have had some mortgage protection or if we could have had, I thought when we got our insurance, we got it almost 35 years ago. And so at that time, it was good. But now everything is so high now. It's like when we got protection back then, if we had 100,000 or 200,000, that was good like 30, 40 years. Now you have to have some more, and then we're getting older. And so as you get older, your insurance costs more money. So that's why it's important that we go ahead and get it while we're still a little young enough to get it. And then if you feel like, hey, I can't get it, I can't afford it, they won't give it to me, I have too many medical problems, then I would suggest that you prepay for your service, prepay for your cremation, prepay for if you prepay for your things, like say for instance, if you want to be buried or whatever, it's cheaper. It's way cheaper. I'm telling you guys, I did probably about $30,000 on my husband and not thinking, you're not in your right mind when you're making decisions when you just lost your loved one. And they know that. And so that's why they upscale different things because you're just, I remember paying for a mural that was just absolutely beautiful. And I very rarely even go there, right? So if you prepay for it, then you don't have to worry about doing GoFundMe and doing, being a hardship on your church, your loved ones. Money is tight everywhere. Even people that have had some good money in their good money put away, it's tight for them even right now. And so because we don't know what's coming down the pipe here, we don't know what's ahead of us, we don't know what emergency we may have. It is important that we go ahead and get these things in place. Go ahead and pay for it, prepay for it if you feel like you can't pay for insurance or you can't get insurance. And then look into getting you some mortgage protection. The mortgage protection is, it covers you if you become incapacitated and you're sick. It covers you if you die, it will pay off. And then the mortgage protection is similar to having a savings account. So you're paying this mortgage protection. And say, for instance, you pay your house off before you die and you get all your money back. So it's like a bank that is holding it for you. And so as I think about it, especially for those of you that know that your spouse is the breadwinner, and if you know that it's a possibility that you have to inherit that house note and you still have your spouse, it is important, it's essential that you look into getting some of these things done because you may find yourself in foreclosure. You may not be able to afford it. My income does not cover my mortgage. And so can you imagine if you're a younger widow that cannot get their spouse's money. And what will you do if you found yourself in that predicament? If not the predicament, but if you found yourself in that situation. So just think about it like this. Can you afford the mortgage if you were to lose your loved one, whether it be him, whether it be her, whether it be a family member? Because what you do when you lose your loved one, you don't only lose that loved one, you lose that income, you lose that companionship, you lose that relationship, you lose your lover, you lose your best friend. There are so many different levels of loss when you lose your spouse. And so, because we never know, it's just important that you get these things in place and in order. Again, I'll say this. If you were to lose your loved one today, would you be able to carry the mortgage? Would you be able to carry the car note? Would you be able to carry those things as if that person was no longer here? And so, in saying that, I just want you to Selah for a moment and think about that. Will I be able to do it? I remember I had two gentlemen tell me, I don't know what my wife is going to do because if something happened to me, she going to have to move. And I was thinking, wow, why not just prepare that she wouldn't have to move? Where is she going when you've been somewhere for so long? And since I was told that, one of those guys have passed away. And I'm thankful and grateful to God that his wife is still in the home. And so one thing I can tell you is this, is that God watches out for the widow. And so I have to tell myself that as I'm telling you all that, for those of you that have already lost your spouses, that he watches out for us. Even if we find ourselves in a circumstance where we may have slept in the car, may have been going through loss of things and stuff, he's never going to leave us on a note of not completion. He's still working it out for us, and he just knows what's best for us. And so, even though we can't quite figure it out, and we're wondering why is this happening and why has this happened to me, and I know sometimes some people can be cliche and say, why not you? And I used to kind of get a little attitude about that. Like, what do you mean, why not me? Do you know who I am? Do you know who I am in Christ? And so I have learned that God is sovereign and that we are all his children who have accepted him as Lord and Savior, and that he has the last call to everything concerning us. But one thing about it is we will not be left on a note where God will not get the victory and the praise and the glory and the honor out of our lives. So as we are on this journey, reflect on the goodness of God, reflect and continue to make great memories. I say this all the time. A couple of weeks ago, Sister Carlotta was with her husband, where he is now with her little mini skirt on, showing them legs. And I said, you go, girl. You know, I tell her, climb up in that bed with him, kiss him all over his head, eyes, and everything, and just continue to create memories, even in that, even though that's not a place where I'm sure she wants him to be, but it's the vicissitudes of life. And so, again, as long as we live, we will um, experience death, we will experience disappointments, we will, but we still at the same time have to know that God is using us for His glory, His purpose. And even though we don't like it, just like many of those that were in the Bible, at the end, we win. The fight is fixed. And so just reflect, I now reflect on the things of God, knowing where my husband is. Even though I know he's not here with me, I know he is with the Lord. And so because I know he is with the Lord, I am just in awe. They have experienced what we have to still experience. And so um, I just am thankful. Has it been an easy road? Absolutely not. Has this month has been even difficult for me? But I am determined that God will get the glory. God will get the honor. And he says, I remember one day I was down and reading my Bible and I couldn't remember where that scripture was, but he says, when you want to just lay down and say, I don't care anymore, I give up, I don't want to do this thing anymore without him. I cannot do this anymore without him. And God said, what good would it be if you're in the grave? How would I get the glory out of you not allowing me to carry you, to continue to heal you, to be a testament to other people that will be coming widows behind you? What good would it be? How would that give God glory for his goodness, his mercy? And so I have learned to turn this thing of grief into thankfulness, even in the midst of the tears, the hurt, the pain, the uncertainty. I have learned to just say, God, I trust you. Even if I feel like I don't trust him. He said, if you have the faith of the mustard seed, then you can, he honors that. And so when I lift my heart up to him and say, thank you, Lord, for the gift that you allow me to have, for the gifts that I have in my family and my friends, for the gift that you have placed people in my life to help me on this journey. As I help others, as I talk to you guys on today, it lifts up my spirit to move forward a little bit long, to take another step a little bit further. Because I know at the end of the day that God will get the glory, the honor, and the praise. And I know when I get there and on Judgment Day, he will say, well done, daughter. And I will have my rubies, my diamonds, and every other stone that is going to be in my crown. And I will lay it and place it at his feet and say, thank you, Father, for your goodness that you have shed upon me. And again, back to his faithfulness, back to his sovereignness, back to his providing. God is my provider. As Bishop taught that today, God is your provider. I still kind of was going back, even though I said that I knew my husband was that and that I had God in his rightful place. I get scared sometimes, you guys. It gets scary sometimes doing this on my own. So I just thank God that I could, you know, pursue the call that God has on my life. And I know that if He called me to it, then He's going to bring me through it. And so I am just anticipating that you guys will be able to get your affairs in order this coming year, 2026, because again, we never know. Okay? So I'll see you guys next Sunday if the Lord says the same. God bless you guys. I love you guys. Bye bye.